Hello and welcome to Elena Meets the Author. This podcast explores how authors create a world that we can escape into. Join me as we demystify the magic that keeps us turning the page. I am very excited to be speaking to writer Kate Feiffer today about her latest novel, Morning Pages. I loved it. Kate has worked as a writer, illustrator, television producer, photo editor, and ice cream scooper. She is the author of 11 highly acclaimed books for children. She also is the event producer for the Martha's Vineyard-based Writers Festival, Islanders Write. Kate lives between Martha's Vineyard and New York City. Kate's father is the award-winning illustrator, cartoonist, and writer Jules Pfeiffer, and her mother, Judy Pfeiffer, was a writer, photographer, and book editor who helped foster two best-selling memoirs by then-novice authors, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou and Mommy Dearest by Christine Crawford. And Kate's sister, Hallie Pfeiffer, is a playwright. So, a very talented family indeed. Kate, welcome to the podcast, and it's so great to have you on the show. How are you today?
Elena, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. You do such amazing research on these shows, and I'm just delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure. Good. So I listened to Morning Pages before I read it, and I couldn't stop laughing, especially when the inappropriate, eccentric grandmother was talking. I never realized there was only one narrator for all the different characters. She deserves an Oscar for your Audible if such a thing exists. I also loved how I got into the book from page one, no patience required. In one interview, you describe your book as a coming-of-age story for the sandwich generation. The book centers on Elise Hellman, a female playwright who is trying to write a play on a tight deadline while juggling taking care of her stoner 18-year-old son and her octogenarian mother, who is showing early signs of dementia. You're dealing with heavy, relatable topics, but you do it as a witty first-person confessional from Elise's point of view. There's so much humor that it makes it a joy to read or listen to. In the story, Elise was once touted as a playwright to watch after her first hit play, Simple Syrup, 25 years ago. Elise wrote several successful plays after that, but her promising career has stalled, and she hasn't written a successful play in 7 years. But now, out of the blue, Elise has been asked to write a new play to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Players Playhouse that first produced Simple Syrup. Elise knows this is her chance to resurrect her moribund career, so she says yes. She has 65 days to write it, but she's blocked, so she uses a creativity device called Morning Pages to unblock her. Kate, to start off, can you explain to us what the Morning Pages are and how you decided to use Morning Pages as the way Elise tells her story? It's genius, by the way.
Thank you. And thank you for that great introduction and summary of the book. But I also just want to shout out kudos to Mia Barron, who narrated the audiobook and did a brilliant job. It's a complicated book to do an audio version of it because there's a lot of dialogue. There's a play. It's complicated, and she did a magnificent job.
She really did.
So Morning Pages came about from Julia Cameron's 1972 book, The Artist's Way, which is a book that helps creatives become unblocked. It's exercises to help creative people get through whatever's blocking them. And Morning Pages is one of the devices that she uses in this book. She recommends people use in the book. And what they are is 3 pages. As soon as you wake up, first thing in the morning, write down stream of consciousness, 3 pages. Even if you can think of nothing to write, you just write, I can think of nothing to write. I can think of nothing to write. And the idea, as I understand it, is that it's like stretching before you exercise. So then when you get down to the business of actually writing, whatever it is you're working on, you'll gotten rid of the gunk in your head. And I use this device in the book, which is about a playwright who unexpectedly gets a commission to write a play, and she is blocked. She cannot figure out how to finish the play. Her life is imploding, and there's 65 days left until her deadline. And so I decided to use this device because I wanted to explore her internal monologue, and I wanted to explore the issues that she's dealing with without having to conform to a sort of typical not structure of a novel. This gave me so much freedom to tell the story, tell it in her voice, and tell it tangentially when necessary.
Yeah, the voice is so strong. It's excellent. So how did you get the idea for this book where real life interrupts the artist's life, especially if you're a woman, I think? How did the idea come to you?
Well, a lot of us are sandwich generation dealing with, in fact, I think there's something like 50% of women in their 40s and 50s are caring for children and aging parents. And we tend to be the caretakers, and we are dealing with all sorts of stuff while trying to tend to our own needs. And often our own needs get lost in the shuffle. And as a writer or any kind of artist, it's really easy. So if you don't have a day job to go to, it's really easy to forget who you are and forget what you're doing. And my mother was in the early stages of dementia. I didn't know it at the time when I started writing this book, and she's very much inspired by, well, the character in the book, Elise's mother, is very much inspired by my mother, who was eccentric and beautiful and had really serious boundary issues. And like I would invite friends over and she would ask them about their sex lives. And this would happen even before they had sex lives. So when she started behaving, when eccentricity changed to erraticness, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but I knew things were off, the stories that came out of that time inspired the beginning of this book. At the same time, I had been writing children's books. I had 11 children's books, and some of them were quite popular. But I was having a hard time getting a book published, getting my 12th book published. And I wrote the 12th, 13th, 15th, 16th book, and I couldn't get them published. So I decided that Elise, the main character, would not be a children's book author. She would be a playwright, but she was dealing with these career issues, the same career issues that I was facing, which is, erosion of self-confidence, and dealing with all these life issues.
Yeah, very hard. And midlife. Where you kind of lose your confidence in some ways, career-wise anyway, I think, if there's a bump.
Right. And she's recently divorced and, everything was going great for her early on. And suddenly her life doesn't make sense in the way she thought it would.
Right. Each chapter is named after the day in which Elise writes her morning pages. So there's day 1, day 2, and so on. As we approach day 65, the deadline for Elise's play, Déjà Nu. Not only is that a clever writing device, but you also scatter excerpts from Déjà Nu throughout your book, a story within a story. And that play, in many ways, mirrors the main plot. An adult daughter struggling with her divorced parents who still hate each other. In the play, the divorced parents fall in love again. In the main story, not so much. I'm wondering about your writing process. Did you write the entire play Déjà Nu or just those excerpts that we see in the book?
Well, at one point I thought, if I'm writing a play about a playwright, I need to write a play. So I took a playwriting class. I read a ton of plays and I wrote scenes from the play and then I wrote the entire play, but the entire play is actually in the book. So if you read it through, and we've now done several readings of the play just as its own thing, and it is a play, it's a play in progress, but it is, it has a arc and an ending and an unexpected scenes. And so it is the entire play in the book. So it really does read as a story within the story. Originally, I wasn't planning to have any scenes of the play in the book. I had just written the play as an exercise because I thought it was important if I'm writing a book about a playwright, as I said, to have written a play. So it was an exercise in that and to have written the play that this playwright would have written. So it's very meta in that way. But then when we were going through the edits of the book, and I told my editor I have the play, she asked to see scenes, and we started putting them in, and then more and more and more until really it is the entire play. It's in the book, so it's a sub-story.
And I love the twist in the play versus in the book. The grandparents, the parents, do kind of get back together, which you always think that is the children of divorce. That's always their dream. So that's funny that that's the play she writes versus her.
Yes. Although it's supposed to be a little ambivalent as to what really happens in the play.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's just a throwaway line. You're right. There's several other funny characters beyond Elise and her mother, Trudy. like Elisa's ex-husband, Elliot, the handsome elevator man, Aunt Rosemary with her singed auburn-colored hair, and of course, the characters of the play within the book, Granville, Laurie, Larry, and Grace. You tell us in the acknowledgments that your spirited mother, Judy Pfeiffer, used to tell you, I've given you the material, you should use it. So, obviously, Trudy and Grace are very much based on your mother. What about your father? Is he here too?
There's a character named Larry in the play, and while Larry is not my father, there are, shall we say, ripped from the headlines lines that Larry says, that there are many aspects of my father. I was fascinated, and one of the themes I really wanted to explore is the relationship we have as adults with our parents when those are complicated relationships, and the hold our parents continue to have on us, even when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. And so I really was fascinated by this relationship between adult children and their aging adults, and how that relationship, you think about the teenage years and how often tumultuous those are, but those tumultuous years can continue on. And I had my mother's passed, but have complicated relationships with both my parents, and was really interested in exploring those issues.
It's such a good point. You really have to, it's very difficult. I heard you say that in one interview that when you were talking to caregivers, they said that you should never give your mother a bath. Something would be triggering for you, for any daughter.
Right.
There's certain things, because it's just so hard to separate the person that they were from the person that they are.
Yes. Yeah, no, the caregivers, I was very lucky with my mother. She had amazing caregivers, and it was a way that I could maintain my relationship with her while not having to do the hands-on caring of her. So I was lucky.
That's great.
Yes.
Would you mind reading from your book, or rather from the play within your book, page 282? Can you first explain what's going on in the scene?
Yes. So this is a scene between Larry and Grace. And Larry and Grace are now, for reasons, so they were married. They split up when Laurie, their daughter, was 8 years old. Larry has been married 5 times since then. Grace has never remarried. Grace was recently in a car accident and moved in with her daughter, Laurie. Larry's most recent wife recently tossed him out of the house, and he ends up moving in with Laurie as well. So for the first time since she was 8, and Laurie is 40 years old, she's professionally extremely successful. She is unmarried, and for the first time since she was 8, she is living with both her parents. She is dating someone, and they've gone off together on a trip for a long weekend, and Larry and Grace are at home in Laurie's house together. So, Elena, you're going to read the role of Larry.
Exactly.
And we have not rehearsed this.
We have not. That is very true. Larry, how come you never remarried?
You want to know why, Larry? You always said I worried too much. You were brilliant and charismatic, and I was madly in love with you. But I knew deep down it wouldn't last. Only I let my guard down, and then you left. But you didn't just leave. You flaunted your fabulous freedom in front of me with one woman, then another. Well, I didn't want it to happen again.
I'm sorry, Gracie.
You know what they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I wasn't about to make that mistake again. I knew you'd leave me, but I let myself stop worrying. What people don't realize is that there are benefits to being a warrior. I always found it odd that the non-warriors amongst us are so worried about the warriors. There's nothing really to worry about. They should go on with their not worrying. We warriors are just fine. Worrying is our way of adapting to the dangers around us. Not worrying is another way of adapting, but it's not the warrior's way. Have you ever noticed the only difference between the words warrior and warrior is 2 vowels? We warriors are worry warriors. We're on the front lines, fighting the good battle against salmonella and E. coli, automobile accidents, tripping and slipping, riptides, skin cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and the rare forms of cancer that are difficult to detect and harder to treat. We're out there worrying for the rest of you about robbers and rapists, drug use and abuse, vitamin deficiencies, radiation from microwave ovens, children with short attention spans, global warming, the unemployment rate, whether the air traffic controllers have gotten enough sleep, lightning strikes, climate change, and nuclear weapons. We worry that husbands will cheat, pregnant daughters will miscarry, and marriages will end. We take this on for the rest of you to be free, to live in health and sickness, to be happy and suffer, to enjoy your life or to hate it. Whatever your inclination, just don't worry about it. Leave that to us.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
It's very funny, and it's so true.
Are you a worrier?
I am a worrier, so I related to everything that you said. I'm like, yeah, I'm worried about that too. Yep. It was really great. Let's see. Writer's block is a big theme in Morning Pages.
Yes.
Elise struggles with what to write, so she resorts to writing about what's going on in her actual life. And often real life is funnier than fiction. Do you get writer's block? And if so, how do you deal with it? Maybe you do Morning Pages or something else. And did having such successful parents impact your ability to write at all?
So to start with the second question, yes, absolutely. It was very inhibiting, even though they were incredibly supportive. Both of them were absolutely 100% supportive of all my artistic endeavors. It was incredibly inhibiting.
I can imagine.
Yes.
Your father won a Pulitzer.
My father's won a trillion awards. My father has recreated himself since the age of 20 and is absolutely brilliant and had this amazing career. But like I said, it wasn't because of them. They were very, very supportive. It was all self-imposed. And so in terms of blocking, the book is about a woman who has problems finishing things. And that very much is me. I'm not blocked at beginnings. I am pretty good with middles, but beginnings, so I keep beginning things. Like I have a trillion books that I've begun. I have a million projects that I've begun. So I don't have my block is a finishing block, not a block. It's just maybe this is an ADD thing. I don't know, but it's an ending block. So I don't tend to get, maybe I'm not disciplined enough. I don't know, but I have an ending block.
Writer's end block.
Writer's end block, yes. That's got to be a thing, right?
I guess so. I mean, I think in terms of writer's block, that sounds like not a bad one. Because at least you get started and you get to the middle. So how were the two endings in this book? Did you struggle with those?
Struggled with both of them. And the ending of this book I really struggled with this one. And this novel was, I was writing it over a series of over a decade in bits and spurts, and I was pretending I wasn't writing a novel while secretly I knew I was writing a novel. And when I realized, okay, I'm really writing a novel and I need to now shape it like a novel and end it like a novel, I had long explanatory unfolding, denouement, and then I was taking a walk. I'm a big walker. And in fact, there's a lot of walking that happens in Morning Pages. Yeah. And it was, one of those epiphanies. Suddenly the ending came to me clearly. It was exactly what it needed to be. And that was that. And then it hit me and it was like, this is right. And this is what it is.
It's very good. It's very good because it's not patent perfect. And I love, my goodness, Marsden's contribution.
Yes, thank you. I didn't want to make it patent perfect, but I wanted everything tied up in its own way. Yes. So I wanted, yes. Not everything works out for everyone, but it's.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was good. So the book is written in the first person. Was that an easy decision?
Yes, because I knew I wanted to use this device of Morning Pages. So obviously you can't get into the heads of other people. So the hardest part was writing something in her voice without making it too whiny. Some early drafts, some of the feedback I got was maybe she's too whiny. The humor was really important for me. I really wanted each little, as you said, the stories unfolds in 65 days. I wanted each of the day to be sort of its own little routine, sort of, and its own story. But the humor, each one had to hit, laugh lines and sort of an emotional arc. So that was sort of the joy of writing in first person. It was basically like writing 65 little stories. I probably had, 100 by the time I was done and culled it down to 65.
So funny. I mean, even Alan the doorman, the beginning, and you don't tell us he's the doorman and you're so excited that he's calling.
Yeah.
He's never called. You just have, I guess that makes sense to me, thinking of it as each day was a vignette.
Yes. This is an aside. I'm in New York right now in the building I stay in when I'm in New York. One of the doormen, beloved doorman, just died, and there was a service for him yesterday on the roof, and there must have been 100 tenants there. And for New Yorkers, the doormen, you have relationships with them, and particularly if you grew up in a building. The building I grew up in, there was a doorman named Alan, and he knew everything about everyone and was painfully discreet. And they are a huge part of our lives, and yet we know so little about their lives. There's the imbalance of that relationship is I was interested in exploring that in this little way as a subplot or sub-story.
That's a really good point. There is another book I've got on my bed table about a doorman. It's a memoir, a New York doorman. I can't remember what it's called, which is horrible. And he talks about how they don't want to know you. That was one of his first lessons. They're not there to be your friend. And I have an apartment in New York with a doorman. And they know, I see them twice a day, if not more. I see them more than that. And I was thinking it's a nice thing about New York because it's this repetition of the doorman. You always have someone to say hello to, someone to say goodnight to. It's this warm, friendly thing, that person that you don't get in other cities. They fill this role. But you're right, I don't know anything much about my doorman's lives.
Yeah, and they see your moods. You walk in and you're distraught. They see you when you're happy. They see who comes and goes out of your life. They know the intimate details often of your world.
How about transitioning from writing children's books to adults? Was that a challenge or not really?
It was fun. You can use language. Obviously, adult novels are longer. I think one of the things about writing children's books, I illustrate as well. I haven't illustrated my own books, but I do draw and have illustrated other books. But I think very visually, and I hope that I brought that into this book. Since it's first person, there aren't long descriptions about things. That's one of the things you have to lose, a description about like where you are or whatever, what people look like often. But I hope it's visual in the way Elise is thinking about things. But the children's books, you really are writing visually. Your story, because it's a marriage of pictures and words. So when you're telling the story, you're thinking visually as much as you possibly can. And for me, it's very visual exercise. And I think the novel to some extent was more cinematic in the way I was thinking about it. But
interesting. I was thinking it would be a great play or a movie, but to me, it struck me as it would be great on stage. What do you think?
Well, we are trying to turn the play into a play. I am trying to develop the actual play in the book into a play.
Great.
And I've had a few readings of it, and we actually shifted the ending a little bit. But I am working on to see if that piece can be a play. But it would be interesting. I hadn't thought of the other part of the book being a play too.
How you would do that.
Yeah.
But you're right. Since that part of the book is first person, there isn't much description. You get description about what people look like from other people commenting. But the rooms. But I mean, I didn't miss it at all. I didn't notice until you mentioned, because your play within the play, there's a lot of detail because you're having to describe the set.
You describe the set, but there's no set descriptions for the morning pages.
Exactly. You dedicate your book to 2 writers' groups. Can you tell us about those groups and how they helped you? One is in Martha's Vineyard, I think?
Yes. A longtime writers' group in Martha's Vineyard that we call ourselves the Gorgeous Group. And that happened because I was at one point writing an email to all of us saying, are we meeting today? Is everyone here available to meet? And my daughter was talking to me, and I think she brought in some flowers. And I said, oh, honey, those are gorgeous. And as I was typing, I sent it, and I was like, are we meeting for Gorgeous Group? And I sent it. And since then, we've been calling ourselves the Gorgeous Group. And before the pandemic, we had sort of stopped meeting. We used to meet every week and then every other week, and then we were meeting maybe once every 2 or 3 months. We had sort of fallen apart. But they early on were who had been I had been workshopping essentially these various days and reading it to them. And because we had been together for so long, we all love each other. And I started to get worried because they were a great audience. I'd read them stuff, they'd laugh, they'd love it. But I really wanted to have a writer's group where people didn't love me and people didn't know me. And so I started spending more time in New York once my daughter went off to college. And I formed a writer's group in the city, and it was 4 women. All of us were working on novels. I mean, I've written 2 novels for kids, but, adult novels for the first time. So we were 4 first-time novelists. And we were all trying, sharing sections from our books together. And that gave me a sense of, from this different group, and they were also responding really well. And I was like, oh, great, they don't love me and they still love the book. So that was really helpful. When 2020 came around and we all moved inside our houses and didn't see each other for 2 years, the Martha's Vineyard Writers Group started meeting on Zoom weekly, and that anchored me. And that really was why the book was finished. But those weekly Zooming through the pandemic, that was an incredible year and a half of intense writing every week for this writers group and getting their feedback. And so none of this would have existed without those writers groups.
Are you still meeting the writers group on that often, or what's happening now?
So the Vineyard Writers Group is back to meeting now and then, although we're not as, we meet now maybe once every 3 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, but we still are trying every week. I somehow kind of, I take responsibility for this. At some point with the New York Writers Group, I said, let's all finish our novels. Let's give ourselves a deadline. And I said, what about October 15th? And let's all, because we were so close. And it was like 6 weeks from October 15th. Let's just give ourselves that deadline. And then I never heard from them again.
October 15th of 2024?
No, of 2022, I think that was, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense, of course.
Yes, I by that time become friends with them, so I have personal relationships. But as a group, it was just like they just went to radio silence. So
too much pressure. That's funny. So are you working on something now?
I have ideas for something. I'm working on a children's book that I want to illustrate, and I think it's funny and clever, and I have an idea for another book, but I haven't really started it yet.
For adults?
For adults, yes.
The Divorced Virgins.
The Divorced Virgins.
That's an inside joke for those who haven't read the book. Anyway, that's it for my questions. Thank you so much. I want everyone should read this book or listen to the Audible or both. It's really, it's relevant and it's funny. The fact that that you have humor makes it palatable and enjoyable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This has been a blast.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you love Morning Pages as much as I did. I only recommend books that I enjoy, and humor is important to me, but not essential. Morning Pages takes a serious topic, the struggles of the sandwich generation, and how often those in the middle of that generational sandwich, the bologna slice, can lose themselves caring for others and become invisible in the process. Kate uses humor to make this serious topic not just palatable, but enjoyable. I'll see everyone in 2 weeks for yet another chat with an author of a book that I'm really excited to share with you. Bye for now.